Now, I don't know how spiritual you are, but it doesn't really matter. If God says no to you twice, that's got to test your patience. That's got to test your patience a little bit. Paul tries to go to Asia. Nope. So he says, okay, well, I got another plan. I'll go to Mysia. God says, nope, you're not going there either. So verse 8 says, so they passed by Mysia, and they went down to Troas. Now, there's two verses here, 7 and 8, but there's about 600 miles between these two verses. I looked it up on a map. Between where Mysia was and where Troas was, a 600-mile detour on foot in the Middle East. No bathrooms, no rest stops, no air conditioning, 600 miles, all because God had said no. You think around mile 397, they started maybe to doubt the plan a little bit. You think somewhere along that trip they might have been like, what is God doing? Why is he making us take this huge detour? So try to appreciate how tough this must have been for Paul and his team, how hard this must have been for this hyper type A personality, which is what he was. He's a leader, he's a genius, he's used to winning every argument that he's in, he's used to calling every shot, and he has this incredible vision for taking the gospel to Asia. And God says no. So then he has this other incredible vision of taking the gospel to Mysia, and God says no. As I was reading this week, I was like, trying to read it with new eyes. I've read it before, but as I was reading it kind of fresh, I'm like, this doesn't make sense to me. Paul knows what he's doing. He's a high-capacity leader. He's a high-capacity guy. He's a brilliant mind. He's a strategic thinker. He doesn't do anything by accident. He's an expert in influencing people to join the cause of Christ. I mean, why not send him to a place where no one has heard of Jesus? So he makes this plan. God says no. He makes another plan. God says no. Then we get to verse 9, and God tells him to go somewhere completely different than where he had originally wanted to go. Verse 9 says, during the night, Paul had a vision of a man of Macedonia standing and begging him, come over to Macedonia and help us. And after Paul had seen the vision, we got ready at once to leave for Macedonia, concluding that God had called us to preach the gospel to them. So Paul and his team says, okay, this is God's call. This is what God wants us to do. And so they obey, and they go instead to Macedonia. Now, what can we learn from Paul here before we move on? I think that there's something to be said here about God saying no. There's something to be said here about our lives. See, what we want our lives to be is like, and I've showed this to some of our board members before because this relates to so many things. Like, you guys have seen these kind of charts, right? In your workplace, you've got all these little points of data and all this stuff. Well, a lot of us think that like our spiritual growth and our spiritual life and following Jesus ought to look like this. Like, okay, salvation. Hooray! I've come to Jesus. Jesus has saved me, and now I just grow and grow and grow and grow. And nothing is ever hard, right? Until finally one day, woo, heaven, right? I get to make it to heaven and everything's been great. And I just grow until that point. Usually, it's more like this. Salvation, maybe a little bit of growth, and then heaven someday if you're lucky, right? If you trust in Jesus. See, we want life to be easy. We want life to be simple. We want uninhibited growth, uninhibited blessings, uninhibited God leading us to do things, and we obey, and it's just blessings and blessings and blessings. Victory unto victory is how the old song that we used to sing in the churches that I grew up in said it. From victory unto victory. But life usually doesn't work out that way. Even following Jesus, even being faithful to Jesus, it's not just victory unto victory. God's will, what I'm trying to say, is that God's will for your life is usually not the shortest distance between 2 points. God's will for your life is usually not the shortest distance between 2 points.